Hello everyone, and away we go for another edition of Matchday -1. It is presented by our friends at PointsBet, founding partner of Austin FC. Adrian Healey, Michael Lahoud, my co-pilot. Michael, what a time to be alive. What a time to be verde and black. We get to do the after party first. We don't often get to do the aftermath of a game so soon after it happens, but Saturday night, still so fresh, so much to look back on with a huge sense of accomplishment. The most dominant display of the season, I think it's fair to call it, by Austin in sweeping aside Atlanta United.
I still have Georgia on my mind.
Yes, you
and
do.
Not just because I'm a Ray Charles fan. I really am. But this performance...
He is. I can confirm.
Wish I could play like and sing like him. But this performance, we both got off air, and we both looked at each other and had a smile on our face.
Yeah.
It was a complete performance, a team performance, and just well managed from start to finish.
You talk about well managed. I mean, certainly eyebrows are raised with the starting 11. We debated that backwards and forwards on the pregame show with the games coming thick and fast. Boy, did it prove to be beautifully managed by Josh Wolf and his staff. Not starting Driussi and Arruti, a big call, but then you said it at halftime at 2-0 up. Bringing them on. You said I would bring them on right now and kill this game off right now and get out with the. That's exactly what happened. So you have to give a big shout out to the coaching staff and their game plan coming into this one.
And also give a big shout out to those players who stepped up. Felipe Martins.
Yep.
What a game he had. The way he scored that goal and almost got that second with his head. How he stayed connected with Danny Houston, another player who had an excellent game, holding the ball up. What they did well from the front, they led from the front by pressing from the front. And Austin FC, they went back to kind of the structure and the philosophy that they started the season with, getting goals, but also defending from the front, pressing, and hitting on the counter.
Yeah. I'm glad. I wanted to mention, obviously, Felipe and Ethan Findlay. They both had tremendous games. And Danny Houston, too. I thought he was fantastic in the first 45 minutes. Wasn't able to provide that one killer moment, the finishing touch. Again, I think the turf worked against him in a couple of occasions. But you got to feel a little bit sorry for him because I think he's played brilliantly in these last two road games in the first half in Atlanta and Charlotte, but hasn't got his name on the score sheet.
Well, his technical ability
is
the difference when he steps on the field. He's able to hold the ball up because his technique is so clean. In the first 15, 20 minutes, his ability to get out of tight spaces because he had a good first touch, even better second touch. And then he clipped a couple diagonal passes to Ethan Findlay to then change the point of attack. I think he's the type of striker that when you need a call or when you need a goal, who are you going to call? Yes, Ghostbusters. But also you can call Danny.
Yes, call Mr. Houston. But let's give Messrs. Felipe and Findlay some love. Second game in a row with a goal for Ethan Findlay. Deservedly the player of the game. Deservedly making MLS Team of the Week, in case you hadn't seen that, alongside Brad Stuver for another clean sheet. One of his quite easier games, I think. But Ethan Findlay and Felipe, both of them coming in. And Michael, to me, they embody a lot of what has been so great about this squad this season. Those are two guys the wrong side of 30. Which I know all about, by the way. But they would be the first to admit perhaps they haven't had the most stellar last 2 or 3 years, but they've come here and really not only brought into what this team is trying to do, but added so much to it, and it was fantastic to see Felipe back on the score sheet. What odds would you got on a Felipe header before the game? But there it was, 8 minutes in from a Findlay cross.
Yeah, let me call my cousin who probably put some money on Felipe getting the header PointsBet money. But just what I love about those two players, they're professionals, consummate professionals, start to finish. I'd put Hector Jimenez alongside that. They're MLS veterans. So they know their roles, whether it's to come off the bench or to start matches. They know how to deliver. They know what the team needs, and they know how to read the game. And I thought Ethan Findlay, his utilization of his speed in behind was first class. But also, you start to see what confidence does when you get a goal.
Yeah.
He's getting closer to the goal. I played against Ethan. I played against Felipe. And one of the things that made it so difficult to play against Ethan was his ability to start wide, but also finish in the attack. And Felipe, it reminded me of when he started his career at CF Montreal. He started as an attacking midfielder, scoring goals and getting assists.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see those two rewarded on the field for what they've brought to this squad over the last few months. So here we are, 4 consecutive road games. As our great communication staff were quick to point out, we've reached that tally in just 53 games as a club. I think that's the second fastest ever. So big picture. Move on to that. Following and biggest home defeat ever for Atlanta United, which was just, it's just remarkable. I hope we're all realizing what this is that we're watching in year 2 from Austin, because the big picture shows we're second in the West, but there's quite a little bit of a gap now opening up between us and RSL in third. 7 points, I believe, or only 2 points, nipping at the heels of LAFC. Just every time they think they've pulled away, we come right back at them.
Well, that's the place you want to be in, which is closing that gap, being on the ascension, and eventually being in a place where that game here at Q2 Stadium in August, that's going to become a bigger and I'm going to keep saying it each week.
You keep on talking about August the 26th.
A bigger and bigger talking point, because this team is giving cause for that to become a bigger and bigger talking point. But it's all about who you play in front of you and taking care of business. If you would have told me last season that Austin FC would be going to places like Atlanta and resting their best player, leading goal scorer, talisman, in Atlanta, going up against Joseph Martinez and that South American crew that they have, talented attack, I would have said, you're crazy. But because of the output, because of how difficult it is to play in the West, I could see why rotating and getting some players some rest. But what I love about how even those players, Sebastian Driussi and Maxi, came off the bench, they were hungry.
Yeah.
And they did put the game out of reach immediately. And funny enough, talking with Maxi when we saw him before the show, he said, hey, my friend, are you going to give me assist for that Sebastian goal? So just the competition is healthy and alive in this team.
Those two Argentines can connect even via a crossbar at a 20-yard distance. So he should get one, but obviously he won't. So second in the Supporters' Shield race. I like the fact that Josh Wolf is now starting to get asked questions by both the local and national media about the playoffs. And I love his answer, which is basically, hey, we love where we're at, but there's still 15 games to go, and we can't take anything for granted. And you and I both know that it's what happens in August and September and into October that so often determines champions. But they've got to love where they are. They're in pole position, and they've got through this awkward stretch now of playing, 5 of 6 games on the road, and now have more home games to look forward to.
Well, what I think Josh has done really well is utilize his personnel. At the start of the season, there was a lot of talk. We talked with Claudio Reyna and Josh Wolf about what is different about this team and this squad, and both of them said depth, that there's 2 players to each position who could step at any time. During an MLS season, you're going to need guys who may not be starting at the start of the season to step in and have their big moment. We saw that in Atlanta, and now that gives more confidence to a manager in when you need a player to step up, that the pressure of delivering isn't just on the shoulders of Sebastian Driussi. That Sebastian Driussi can take note of, you know what, I can start preparing mentally and physically for a Houston, for a Dallas, which he will, getting another goal, and just his man management. And I think that needs to be applauded. That needs to be just have a spotlight shown on it. I think Josh has really grown in that year too.
6-0-1 against the Eastern Conference. We kind of joked about it on the broadcast on Saturday. Maybe we should move to the East. Houston had plenty of time in the Eastern Conference down the road. Only joking, guys. But it is remarkable, isn't it? I would love to know, actually. It's tough to look up records like this because you play different amount of games against the opposing conferences from year to year. But this has to be one of the best ever records against the other conference ever put up in the MLS history. So there's one for our statisticians to look up. It's back to the Western Conference and back to in-state rival next, though. We complete the set, Michael. I believe we've now played on every day of the week except Tuesday, and we're going to change that tomorrow with the Houston Dynamo coming to town. First of all, for those of you that didn't see it, what a wild game between Houston and Dallas after our sailing to victory in Atlanta. Watching the tail end of that was crazy, wasn't it?
It's what rivalry games are about. Anything that can happen will happen in rivalry games, and no one wants to lose those games. So it's to the final whistle, and it ain't over until it's over, and both teams showed that. Houston really showed that, getting that late goal from Teenage Hadibi, and those are the type of results that you want if you're Austin FC, because both teams are banged up. They're going to be emotionally exhausted. The physical exhaustion is one thing, but those rivalry games are emotionally draining, especially when they end up 2-2 like that.
Oh, and by the way, that Houston equalizer came in the 111th minute, which again, will take a toll. What's it like? I mean, this is about as short a turnaround as you can ever have. Both teams have it. 3 days. I know you've done it, Michael.
Yep.
And people will ask them, well, does it really make that? But what sort of toll does it take when you're turning around this quickly?
It's a physical toll, but it's more mentally and emotionally draining. Especially, that physically your body's going to react. Coming to Q2 Stadium for Austin FC to play in back-to-back big atmospheres like that. I think Houston playing in one of their first big atmospheres all season. I think having Hector Herrera was a big swan song affair for that match. I think it's really going to be feeding off the fans, but it's going to come down to the staff. Our backroom staff, our sports performance staff, they don't get enough applause. I'm going to give them, Dave Tenney and his staff, they've done amazing to be able to get the massages, get the nutrition, get these guys in a space where they know that they're taken care of off the field so they can show up and be set up in the best possible position to go and play.
Quick plug for the Verde and Black podcast I did with Dave Tenney last week. Give that a listen if you haven't, because he goes into some detail about what it takes behind the scenes to keep these players ready. So what are Austin? Here we are back at home. We've had all the success on the road. Can we translate that on a short turnaround in a derby where so often form book goes out the window? Can they get back to what they were doing so well at Q2 Stadium earlier in the season?
I think yes, especially because this game against Atlanta wasn't just grinding a result out. To get up for a derby, you need to set the tone the game before. Yeah. Derby games are very rare where you just show up and then get a result. Yes, there's going to be times where you grind out. There's going to be times where Houston will have a bit of the edge and Austin will be defending. Brad Stuver will have to come up with a save or two, as we saw in the Atlanta United match. But I think the structural just equilibrium, there was more balance to this team in that Atlanta match without the Sebastian Driussis and even Maxi Ruti in the team to start the match. That gives me a lot of confidence. I think Houston is a very stubborn team. Yeah. They can defend. They want to grind out. Like most teams I feel like we play in the Western Conference, a lot of them want to make it a track meet. Yeah. They're a fast team. Yeah. They have a lot of speed. Fafa P. Colt, he's come here. He's gotten a goal. He's performed well against Austin FC last season. What they did well in the first match against Houston was their patience. Yeah, I loved how they went down a goal. They managed that well, and they just made Houston tired. They moved the ball back and forth, and gaps start opening up when you do that, especially in this Texas heat.
It is interesting, isn't it, how the two teams have gone on divergent paths since the first meeting back at the end of April that you mentioned, when Driussi's winner gave us a 2-1 win. At that point, we were pretty close in the standings, but we've surged. Houston have kind of been treading water, but they'll be up for it. Will they take the same approach as other teams that have come to Q2 of late, like Dallas, like Orlando, LA, have really just kind of trying to apply that defensive and midfield vice-like grip and try and take us out of our stride and really defend first and look to pick things up on the break, because that's what teams have started to do now, good teams at least at Q2. Do you think Houston is capable of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's actually going to come down to their newest signing, Hector Herrera. Yeah. He will give them an emotional lift, and he's a player that, this guy's the captain of the Mexican national team right now. He's a player that will want to make a statement coming to Major League Soccer, and what better place to try and make that statement than Q2? Rivalry, a lot of eyes on this game for good reason. You got one of the best teams in the league in Austin FC, and they will want to knock the Verde and Black off their perch. How they're going to do that is try and take away Sebastian Driussi, try and limit our midfield, try and force us into playing long balls. But they're also a team that they don't have as much depth. And I just wonder, in this heat, with that quick turnaround for them, if we can be good in possession and wear them down a bit. I think eventually they will wilt.
Absolutely. And Drusi and Aruti with just the 45 minutes in their legs. It was,
fresh.
Again, come back to that. It was masterfully planned. So that leads us to the big reveal. We don't get to call the game tomorrow. It's a Unimas game. So normally on our broadcast, you would give us the full Lahoud mood. So maybe we get the benefit of that a day early this week for this Houston game.
Oh, the Lahoud mood is recovered.
Yes.
And for Austin FC to be recovered for these 3 points on deck, they'll have to do these two things. Pre-mood edition, of course. Number one, rivalry games, I say it time and time again in big games, you have to come to compete. It's going to be emotionally charged. This is a team that needs a big result to get going. They felt like they had the start of something, getting that 2-2 comeback.
Yeah.
Because Dallas had the lead twice.
Yeah.
And getting that, they're going to feel like that's an emotional lift. The best way to do that is the likes of Ruben Gabrielson just delivering big tackles. He did that in Atlanta. Defense is going to set the tone. And I think transition is the second thing. Austin FC, they do not want to make this game an end-to-end game that favors the Houston Dynamo with their speed in their wingers. And they're a transition team. A lot of their goals come from transition. So if Austin FC can dominate those two categories, then they will set themselves up well to win the game.
So glad you brought up Ruben Gabrielson, because as part of your Lahoud mood, I want to say my mood is one of sort of gratitude for him, because I don't think he gets enough love and attention. Even maybe sometimes amongst the Austin fans. I know Austin fans really appreciate what he brings to the table, but to me, my goodness, what a performance he had on Saturday. I have not seen many people in the last 5 or 6 years in this league do what he did to one Joseph Martinez. I mean, talk about bodying up and throwing. I mean, people don't do that to Joseph. He may not be the tallest guy, but he's like...
Oh, he's stocky.
Yeah.
Well, Joseph Martinez plays with a swagger that we've seen. And I also don't think Joseph Martinez, since that knee injury he had in 2020, has been the same Joseph Martinez. He certainly looked like he was getting back to that, scoring 2 goals in back-to-back games coming into this match against Atlanta United. But I know that the moment you're talking about, Joseph Martinez looks like he's in the second half.
Yeah.
Going in, and I think, was it Almada plays the slip pass to him, and he's peeling, and it's on his left foot. It happened twice during the second half, where Ruben, he's got the recovery speed, but not only does he have the recovery speed, most defenders go to block that with their right foot. Martinez typically wants to go across his body in that bottom left corner. We've seen goals happen like that. But Ruben not only gets ahead of him, he puts him on the ground and in his back pocket. And we asked him before the show, hey, what was going through your mind? I thought he was going to say, I just wanted to smash him. But, he said, hey, he's one of the best attackers in the league, so I got to respect him. But what he did say is he's definitely going to smash someone in this rivalry game. So good for you, Ruben.
Mr. Quiet Efficiency, just what he's brought to the table, I think needs more recognition. All-star. Oh, did I mean? Yeah, but seriously, he's playing at that level where it's easy to take it for granted in that position. Sometimes I feel bad for centre-backs, because when the team's doing well, they kind of get overlooked. But their contribution, particularly Gabrielson, has been phenomenal. While we're on the subject of gratitude, let's finish with a moment of gratitude for another veteran. We mentioned him earlier in the show, but Felipe, Mr. Felipe Martins. It was in some ways his Austin coming out party, wasn't it? His first goal for the club. He had scored against Atlanta before. He knows how to do it. Little story about him. Our Atlanta brethren, the home broadcasters, Kevin Egan and that crew, do their pregame show from the desk on the field, and during warm-ups, Felipe came over to them because they had a connection from dating back to Red Bulls days, and Felipe was asking how many were going to be in the stadium tonight, and they said 65, 66, 67. Does that make you intimidated? And Felipe was like, no, absolutely. This is extra incentive. And he was just so up for it, and he's been up for everything at this club from day one, on and off the field. The stuff he does in the community, I don't think that gets enough attention as well. He's always first to put his hands up when we're asking for players to make appearances, do community stuff. He's been an upstanding citizen, but boy, is he an asset, both as a player and as a motivator. I mean, I don't think other players want to disappoint him, do they?
No,
because he tells it like it is. If things aren't happening to his liking.
Well, he's a winner.
Yeah,
he's had success in this league, won big accolades, I think, during his time in Major League Soccer, and he brings that presence, he brings that leadership to this team. I think a play that was so easy to miss, his goal that he scored was excellent. The timing of when to start the play, when to see the run of Danny Houston, which takes 2 players with him, and then go into that space. Ethan delivers an amazing ball for him to glance that in. It was in the second half, Maxi and Sebastian come in, and we get the 3rd goal. And strikers, especially those two, they love to press.
Yeah.
And that's typically when the game gets open.
Yeah.
And you see Felipe barking at the two of them to stay compact, to stay organized, to stay within the game plan. That is the type of game management that he brings to this team that really showed itself. And little things like that give you 3 goals in Atlanta.
Well, let's hope for 3 goals and 3 points against the Houston Dynamo. I can't wait to be in the crowd tomorrow. Michael and I have the night off from calling the game because it's a Unimas game, 8 o'clock kickoff. Sonny and Roger will be calling the game on Spanish radio. I will be at Celis Brewery, getting my pregame activity in.
Yeah. So
I've done the sort of the whole tour of pre-game breweries on our nights off. Started north of the stadium. I love Celis. I haven't been there before a game, so I'm going to go there tomorrow and then walk up to the stadium. Can't wait to be able to sit and watch a Texas derby in the stands.
That's going to be different, yeah.
Yeah, going to be a good night. And then, of course, we'll have another one to call on Saturday with Dallas up next. But enjoy the game, everyone. First home game for a while, and our first ever Tuesday night game as well against the Dynamo. We'll talk to you later.